Welcome back to another Writer Wednesday. I am BB Morgan, Beatrice B. Morgan. I should have picked a shorter pen name, but here we are. It's too late now. I am an author, I am an avid reader, fantasy, horror, a little bit of romance. If I can combine all three of those into one, that is fantastic. But here we are, I haven't found it yet. And this is my little corner where I talk about all things writing related, publishing, being an indie author, all of those fun things. And today I wanted to talk about something that I fell asleep thinking about last night. Why? I don't know. I've stopped questioning how my brain works. When you want to write a book, when you've got an idea for writing a book in your head, where do you start? Where do you start? I think that is the biggest hurdle that a lot of authors have to take. They just have to start. But if you've never written a book, how? How do you do this thing that you want to do? I've been writing for so long that I was laying in bed last night trying to sleep, trying to think how would you explain the process of writing to someone who has never written a book but wants to write a book? And I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I do not have an answer for that question, because then I was trying to remember, how did I start writing? And I traced it all the way back to my sophomore year of high school, I think it was. And I was doing this project for some class, and I chose to do my project on comic books. And one of the aspects of this project, I wrote and illustrated my own comic book. I am not an artist, okay? I'm not an illustrator. It was all stick figures, but I did it, and I was really proud of that comic book. The main character of this comic book was named Alice Malone. She was like this secret agent, and they had to go do something. There was a villain, there was a sidekick. It had a plot. It was a very stupid plot, something, a 16-year-old would have come up with. That seed of that story, of that character, did not go away. And it just stayed like in the back of my mind. And over the course of the next, I don't know, however many years, I just kept thinking about it, and I just kept building more and more and more onto it. I kept coming up with new characters. I was building these characters. I was giving them theme songs. Yes, I was dissecting like their backstory and these quirks that they had. And I was like building these little scenes around the characters. I say scenes very loosely in terms of what these things actually were. It was more just like a paragraph of me writing something about the character. And I spent a lot of time building character and like trying to flesh out this world that they lived in. Years later, I have graduated college with my bachelor's, and I decide I'm going to sit down and I'm actually going to write this story out. And I did. I sat down and I wrote a very, very, very bad first draft. I say very, very, very bad first draft because it was 90% the characters doing cool things and being cool and sassy, and 10% plot. I say 10%, probably wasn't even that. There was no plot in this book that I wrote. There was no plot whatsoever. But I got that first draft down. I got the first draft. I could step away from the keyboard and be like, look, I wrote a book. It's that first hurdle of getting these ideas out of your head and putting them onto paper, getting them down. So then you can take a look and be like, okay, what do I have? What do I not need? Where do I go from here? Since that first book, my writing has greatly improved. My outlining has tremendously improved, as in I didn't have any outlining. Now I do. And I have a much better sense of like, what is it? Story structure? Story structure. Scene beats and what dialogue needs to do and what it doesn't need to do, and stating and versus implying. All those fun things. Because at the time when I was building this story in my head when I was in school, I didn't have any concept of like how to build a story. I had never read any books about building a story. I had devoured stories. Yes, I was reading fan fiction, not vicariously. What word do I want? ferociously? Now that I say that word out loud, is that, I don't know if that's a real word or not. It sounds weird. A lot. I was reading a lot of fan fiction, and I realized that fan fiction might not be the best example of well-written things. But you know what? I was young. I didn't have any pocket money. We were going through the what was it? The Great Recession of 2008 or whatever. And my parents didn't have a lot of money to buy books, and I lived in a very rural community, and our school library was the only source of books that I had. I was reading, just not a lot, and my parents didn't read, so I didn't have like an idea of like what books could be. I remember reading a lot of Robin Cook, like medical mystery thrillers. They're good. I enjoyed them. But we didn't have like a lot of fantasy or anything. Moving back to my point of this video, which was, how do you help a writer who wants to write start? Where do you start? You just got to get the words out of your brain. Like, it's a rough draft for a reason. And my first rough drafts are never good. There's a lot that I leave out. It's me telling myself the story. That is what a rough draft needs to be. And again, like, every writer is different, and you just gotta, when you start writing, you have to figure out what you need, how you write what you need to start that rough draft, and run with it. What I need when I start a rough draft is I need a character, and I need that character to have a purpose. Like, what do they want? And what obstacle are they trying to get around? Like this, for example. I very briefly outlined the first chapter of a new project this past week. In this very first chapter, I have this witch who lives in the woods, right? She runs like a little tea herbal shop, and she's minding her own business. Everything's fine. And then this guy shows up and he's like, hey, this is a magic tea shop. Magic's illegal unless you're in the Witches Guild. And she's like, oh no, I've been found out. And he's like, I won't tell anybody, but you gotta come with me and help me solve this murder because I suspect magic is involved and I don't want anyone else to know it yet. So he basically blackmails her into like going and helping and solve this murder. Have I figured out who was murdered? No, I haven't gotten that far yet. This first chapter, you have the main character who is basically dragged into this because she doesn't want to be found out by the Witches Guild. That is her biggest fear. And that is being kind of lorded over her, like, hey, this is what's going to happen if you don't comply. This is the threatened death, if you will. Like, you ever heard that one, a writing advice, which is the stakes in a story should always be death of some kind, whether it's a professional death, like if your career is at stake, actual physical death if you die, if you fail or something, or like a relationship death, like you are going to lose someone, or a relationship that you hold dear is at stake. Something like the stakes of a story should always equate death of some kind. Where was I going with that? Oh, the dog has come in. Hi, Suze. But again, like, how do you tell? Oop, the dog is moving my chair. But how do you instruct someone in something that has almost kind of become second nature to you? And as I'm laying awake there last night, I'm trying to think, like, how did I feel when I was trying to get these words out? I thought they were just the best thing ever. I thought this was going to be so great. It's going to be the next big thing. And then, you get to that point where you realize that it's not. And it's very crushing. You've got to pick yourself up and try again. Odds are the first thing you write's not going to be very good. It's not going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. But you got to keep going. You got to keep trying. And if you're like me and you start writing your first book at like 16, odds are it's probably not going to be that good. And that's okay. The point of being a writer is that you do not give up. You keep writing. Like, I am about to publish my 15th book. And that's publish 15th book. I have several books just sitting on my computer waiting to kind of get into that pipeline of, publishing. 15 books. I am 15 books in, and that is including the not... I have lost where my thought was going. I got distracted by a possible sound in the house. Moving back, what was my last thought? How do you instruct someone in something that you aren't sure how to do anymore because it's become second nature? And I think some people are just gifted with that ability to break things down and teach them in such a way that other people aren't. Like, I don't. And again, if I like had a course on like how to write a novel, and you taught that for several iterations of that course, you would get better at it. You would see where the students need more instruction or need more explanation and where they don't, so you can kind of alter your course to fit their specific needs. And thoroughly distracted, and my train of thought has thoroughly been derailed and set on fire and sent down a cliff. I don't remember what I was talking about. I don't remember at what point, where I was, what thought process I was trying to get into. We're talking about rough drafts, right? And where to start if you wanted to write a novel. Just start. Just sit down. Just start. See where it goes. I do recommend, though, maybe reading up on story structure just to get an idea of like how stories are built, how books build themselves around like character arcs, POV, just little things that I did not look into at all. I knew what POV was, which is not to the extent I probably should have. Again, I was young. It's fine. If you're just starting out with something, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes that, more, not more professional authors, more experienced authors are gonna roll their eyes. And there's always gonna be those authors out there who are demeaning and, tell you that you're not good enough. Don't listen to them, okay? Just don't listen to those poo-poo heads is what I'm gonna call them. Because I had those people, beta readers, or people that tried to critique my stuff that were like basically like, wow, this is really bad, you shouldn't publish it, you should probably go learn something. But the way they said it was very like demeaning and almost kind of cruel. It felt like they were kind of bashing my dreams a little bit. I remember that. Ugh. But don't listen to them. Part of being an author is kind of crafting that thick skin for that kind of feedback, for when people tell you that you suck, and you kind of just have to let it bounce off and roll away. And that building of that thick skin takes time, because those comments do hurt, and they still kind of hurt a little bit, but not nearly as much as they used to, because I have a better understanding of what it all is, and the whole being an author, what all that encompasses. Well, since my train of thought has been thoroughly derailed, I'm probably just going to end it here. Stay tuned for more writing advice, more coherent writing advice, if you will, from me. I also talk about books, books I'm reading, books I'm writing. I also have a book coming out at the end of October. That's exciting. Romantasy, vampires. So we'll stay tuned for that fun process. Till then, I will see you. I keep hearing noises. Anyway, bye.